Hi, I thought I'd do a video of picking up my stitches on the edge of the collar for the harvest sweater. So I finished my rectangle. This is my provisional cast on edge. This is the 2-stitch stockinette stitch edge. It's kind of rolled, so if I kind of pull it out a little bit, you can see that it's 2 stitches. One looks nice, the other one's all kind of jumbly back there. I have finished with a wrong side row. So my working yarn is here and I'm ready to knit across those stitches for the first part of the yoke. So I have a couple of magic numbers in my collar for my size. I am supposed to have 58 ridges. And garter stitch is kind of easy to count rows on because 2 rows of garter stitch makes one nice little ridge. And so I counted my ridges. This yarn I'm using is a little bit thick thin, a little bit slubby, so sometimes the ridges can be a little harder to count, but the fact that it changes color actually makes it a little bit easier to count. So I just, and sometimes if you kind of pull the fabric, you can see the ridges better, but I just counted, every ridge is 2 rows. I want 58 ridges, which ends up being 117 rows, I believe. So I just counted 1, 2, 3, etc. across until I had 58 ridges. The number of ridges is not rocket science for this project. Sometimes I get confused about whether I should count the stitches that are on the needle or not. If you are 1 over or 1 under, it doesn't really matter. I thought I had 58, but then I wasn't really sure, so I just knit 2 more rows to be sure. All right, the first thing I'm going to do, my next magic number, if I move down into the yoke, my next magic number is 96. That's how many stitches I need to pick up along this edge of my collar. And I find it really helpful to, since I'm not picking up 1 stitch per stitch, it's a ratio of 5 stitches per 6 stitches. So I don't want to have too many stitches along here, or it won't fit right. So I have some stitch markers on hand here. I'm just going to fold my collar in half, and this is not like a critical half. I don't need to count stitches to get this half. This is just giving me kind of a ballpark. So I put one of my removable stitch markers at the half point, and then I'm going to go just one more step and fold the halves in halves and mark quarters. So if I take 96 divided by 4, it comes out evenly, which is nice. It comes out to 21 stitches per quarter. Did I do that right? Maybe. 24 stitches per quarter, not 21. So between each of these sets of markers, I want to pick up 24 stitches. And after I pick up a section, I'll put that marker on my needle to help me count when I get to the end, so I don't have to start over again at 1 every time. All right, so I have my other markers on hand here. I also have a crochet hook because sometimes it's hard to pick up stitches with your knitting needle. So I'm ready now to start where it says next row, right side. And the first thing I'm going to do is knit to the last 2 stitches. So you don't really need to watch me knit, so I'm going to pause my video while I knit across here up to this marker that I use to mark my purl 2. So I'm going to take that one off, but I'm going to knit to that point and then I'll start the video up again. Okay, I've made it across this needle to the last 2 stitches. I'm removing my purl 2 marker, and my pattern says knit to last 2 stitches, place marker, knit 1, make 1, knit 1. And so PM stands for place marker. I'm actually going to go to my alphabet markers now, and this is going to be the front edge of my sweater. So I'm going to use my A marker. And I can even go into my pattern and make a note right there that it's the A marker. I actually put it on my picture so that I knew that's what I was putting there. So once I place the marker, I'm going to knit one, make one, and make one, you take this little bridge that is between the stitches and put it on your left needle. I'm going to poke under that bridge from the front, and then I'm going to knit through the back of that loop. I have to knit through the back or I'll get a hole. I can't do a regular knit. So that's a make one. I've made a stitch, and then I'm going to knit one more. Okay, so I've finished place marker, knit one, make one, knit one. This is the end of the row. Next, turn the work 90 degrees and pick up and knit 96. Again is my magic number. I'm going to pick up and knit 96 stitches across this row. So I sometimes, my knitting needle doesn't really turn 90 degrees, and it can be a little challenging to get my knitting needle under these stitches. So sometimes I'll use a crochet hook to kind of help me out. So when you pick up these stitches, you're going to want to pay attention to the pretty V-stitch that's there, and you want that to show. That's going to be your edge. Once you pick up, that's going to be your edge along the collar, which is really pretty. So you want to, when you pick up, you want to go underneath the other stitch that's above. I don't want to start right at the needle. I'm going to come away from the needle just a little bit to this next one. And so I'm going to use my crochet hook to pull this yarn through, and then it needs to go up on my needle. So that's one stitch. This is a slow process, but it's okay. You want it to look good. All right, so that's where I picked that one up. I'm going to go over to this next stitch and get two, pull it through and up on my needle, give it a little tug, and go over to the next stitch. Again, staying above this row of stitches. There's number 3. Pull it up on the needle. And next one, number 4. Again, my yarn is kind of thick, thin, and slubby, and so it can be a little hard to see exactly where those stitches are with this yarn. And come over to the next one, 5. So my pattern said pick up 5 for every 6 stitches. So I picked up 5. Oops, got my yarn captured in there. So now I'm going to kind of skip the next one and take a bigger leap here to get my next stitch. So I'm going to jump over here to get my next one and do 1. All right, so I'm going to keep doing this until I get up to this marker. One thing that I should have done is put a marker in here before I started picking up. So this beginning of round marker, there was a knit 1, make 1, knit 1. So this is where I started picking up. So I'm going to put a little stitch marker in there to do my initial counting from. All right, then I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to keep picking up as I move toward this first marker, and I want to make sure that I've picked up 24 stitches in that stretch. So I'll be back with you. Okay, I am approaching my first marker, and this is the marker that I put in to do my counting with. And so so far I've picked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and I need 2 more stitches, super close to my marker. This is actually the second time I did it, because I got to like about here and needed 12 more stitches, and I realized that I did not need to consciously skip a stitch along this edge. I was probably skipping them by default. When I pull this out, these are pretty evenly spaced. There's a little gappy there, so maybe I could have picked up one more stitch there, maybe one more stitch there, but it looks pretty good, and I can kind of fake squeeze 2 more stitches in there. But when I got to the point where I had to get 12 stitches in a little bit of time, I just ripped all those out. Super easy to rip out, pick up stitches, because I don't have live stitches to try to account for there. I want a nice even spacing on those stitches. And so, sometimes when I have to pick up stitches, I will just pick up what I think looks good and then count them. And if I don't get the number the pattern called for, I'll either do some increases or decreases to get it to where it should be. But this one, I feel like I ought to be able to get it spot on. Notice that this ridge of single stitch stockinette looks really nice there. So all my pickups are in the garbage behind there. So it's not so pretty on the back side, but I mean, it's not ugly, but the pretty edge is right here, and that's going to be just a nice edge along the collar. So I'm going to pick up 2 more here, and then I'm going to put this marker up onto my needle and shoot for my next marker and try to get another 24 stitches in there. And remember, your number is probably going to be different from mine, because I was 96 was my magic number that I divided by 4. Also, there's nothing saying that I did like rocket science in placing these markers. So if I have to, fudge a little bit to get 2 more stitches before that marker, I'm not going to worry about it. All right, so I'm going to pause. I'm going to finish picking up stitches all the way along this edge, and then we'll look at picking up the stitches from the provisional cast on. Okay, so I have picked up the whole way across. My last section I had to do twice because I got to the end and I needed like 4 more stitches in 2 stitches worth of space. So I tore that out and just made it a little more compact. And that's another reason it's nice to have these intermittent markers, so that you don't have to rip the whole pickup out, just a section at a time. It's not too painful. All right, so now, I've just done the pickup, Finally, undo the provisional cast on, put live stitches onto left-hand needle, and work across them as follows. So I need to get these stitches onto the other end of my needle. And so I want to pick them up this way so that then I can just continue knitting around. So it can be a little tricky to try to figure out where the stitches are in all of this. You can take the provisional out first and then just see where the live stitches are one at a time. So like if I have a little pair of sharp scissors here. If I give this first stitch a little nip and kind of tug on my white yarn, I can see there's a stitch right there to pick up. Oops. So you might find it easier if you take the white yarn out first. The end ones are probably the hardest ones to find. After that, I can see here is a stitch. So the white loops are kind of defining the stitches for me. And I should have, my magic number was 18, so I should have 18 stitches. Sometimes I miss one, like I might have missed one here at the end when I picked up, and we can account for that. So I'll go ahead across picking them up like this. So I'm just kind of scooping under that one. I don't know if they're slanted right or not. I'll know when I go to knit them if I've got them on here right or not. I just want to pick them up in the easiest way possible. And if I want, I could, again, continue to snip this provisional as I go, and it might, loosen things up a little bit. What am I up to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're tight. There's extra yarn going there. 7, 8, 9. Oof. So I could do just a little picking of the white yarn here to see what it does. Once I cut that first one, I can actually just kind of uncrochet the next ones. I don't have to keep cutting, but I can keep cutting. I don't care. I'm not saving this yarn for another project or anything. It's just some waste yarn. But things might move just a little more smoothly if I get this yarn out of here. So my stitches aren't quite as tight once I pull this yarn out. I also can give that a little cut so I don't have as much pulling to do. My sweater yarn is a fairly sticky yarn. It's some people describe it as having teeth. Some yarns are very smooth and slippery. The yarn I used for my provisional is very smooth and slippery, but my sweater yarn has a lot of bite to it. Real wool that's not superwash or mixed with any other fibers tends to be more toothy. All right, so I kind of removed up to there, and I'm up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm gonna pause the video. You don't need to watch me futz around with getting these stitches, but I'm just gonna continue to go under those sweater stitches between the pieces of crochet. And when I get down here to the end, I'll join you back up again. Okay, I picked up my last couple of stitches here. They're painfully tight. I may have a little anomaly there at the end, and I may have missed one down at this end. So I might just kind of fool around with this yarn and bring up one more stitch on that edge. I feel like I missed getting one on the edge, and that maybe this last thing I went through is not a stitch. So I'm going to kind of pull that back a little bit. And then I'm just going to remove the rest of my crochet work here. And again, I'm not looking to save anything, so just going to cut and pull to get it all out. So after I get the rest of this pulled out, what I'm going to do is slide these stitches onto my other needle and bring up another stitch down here somehow. I feel like I said, I feel like I missed something there, and that this should be another stitch. So I'm going to kind of work my way down there and create another stitch, and then I'll be back with you with 18 stitches on here and ready to turn the last corner. Okay, I am recovered. So I moved all these stitches onto this needle so that I could get one more stitch down here. I had nothing that was going to come unraveled, but I knew I needed something kind of anchored there. So what I did is I just pulled my tail through a stitch here on the end to create that stitch. I think I lost that in my provisional somehow. I'm hoping that you all left yourself a little longer tail when you did your provisional. This is what I'll have to weave in at the end, which, it'll work. I would have liked it a few inches longer. So here I am ready to, here's my pickup edge, and I'm ready to turn the corner again. And so I am at this point of the pattern under the yoke. So it says, finally undo the provisional cast on, put live stitches on the left hand needle and work across them as follows. Knit 1, make one. So I'm going to do another make one. My my space between my stitches is a little tight and a little awkward because of the provisional. It's kind of like we're at the wrong end of the knitting somehow, and everything doesn't lay quite as nicely. So I'm just going to take a bar here and slip under it, she says, and then knit through the back loop. This is probably the hardest part of the whole sweater, is doing this pickup and working through these provisional cast-ons, etc. All right, so where am I? I knit one, I made one, I'm gonna knit another one and place a marker. So I've decided to take my F marker and put it here because I'm gonna have more markers in between for the raglans. So I decided I'd have my first marker be A and my last marker be F, and that'll just help me remember which is the right side, which direction I'm going, etc. So I have my F marker that I'm going to put on there, and then I just knit to the end. And so it says in the pattern 2 stitches increased. Well, those 2 stitches are the make ones that are at each corner, and we'll be doing more increases there. The A and the F marker will mark where your garter ridge is on the front of the sweater. Right now, this big old strip of garter is kind of collar, but as you advance and increase, it becomes the front bands of the sweater. And that marker will help you remember to switch to garter, because in the body of the sweater, it's stockinette, but when you get to the edges, it's to be garter. And that means that you will be knitting it both on the right and the wrong side, but then the section in between, you'll be knitting on the right side and purling on the wrong side. So, coming into the home stretch, ta-da! I am there. So now everything's just a little bendy because we've gone around corners. So my cable is bending through this first turn, but as we progress and increase, it'll all soften out, and then my other bendy spot is over here. So we're not knitting in the round, so at this point we're gonna turn around and do the next row. If I slide that up so you can kind of see, here's my rectangle, but I've got cable going through the ends, so it's got live stitches all the way around. All right, so at this point you're ready to work into the setup row, and the setup row is where you're going to be putting in more markers. So you're going to start out, I'll just read through it, knit to marker, SM. SM stands for slip marker. So I'll be going this way. I'll knit up to that marker, slip the marker, just means move it one needle to the next. Purl 3, place a marker. So I'm going to go backwards through my alphabet. So I will put the E marker there. And then purl, my number is 20, purl 20. And then place a marker. And then purl 56. So the 20 that I'm purling is the shoulder, it's the top of the shoulder. The 56 I'm purling is the back. And then I'm going to place another marker. Then I'm going to purl 20 again, that's the other shoulder. And then I'm going to place a marker. And then purl 3, which will take me up to the A marker, and then I'll knit the rest of the way. So that's the setup row is really about just getting your markers in place to prepare to do the raglan sleeves and to do increases there. So that should get you started. After that point, you're going to be doing increases at the A and the F, and I believe that they are done like every 4 rows. And then you're going to be doing increases at the B, C, D, and E on either side of those markers every 2 rows. So it's helpful to kind of keep a ticker going of where those increases are. And we can talk about that next time we get together. Or if you have questions about it before that, please give me a holler.